Individualized instruction. A teacher builds a lesson to meet a specific student's needs. Individualized instruction can help struggling readers to overcome gaps in their skills, but it is often hard to find enough time to devote to it. Miscue omission. When the reader skips over a word or a group of words in the text, a reader who struggles with eye tracking skills omits an entire line when reading a text aloud. Passive participants. Students who let their minds wander elsewhere. Reader's workshop. An instructional model that balances direct whole class instruction with independent practice time, small group meetings, and individual teacher and student meetings. A teacher generally begins a reader's workshop with a short lesson on a skill that the students are then asked to apply while reading independently during workshop time. Active participants. Students who pay attention with their whole bodies. Interest survey. Questions that ask students the types of books they enjoy reading, given by the teacher at the beginning of the year to determine what books to assign to meet the interest of the class. Extrinsic external motivation. The motivate for the activity comes from the outside the individual. Independent reading. Reading done by students independent of the teacher. This reading can be either assigned or student selected, typically silence. English language learners. Students who are learning the English language or for whom English is not a first language. Guided reading. Reading done by students with teacher support. This reading will be done within the framework of a lesson and often in a small group setting with the teacher. Differential complexity. How difficult the vocabulary, sentence structure, and organization is to understand within a text. When assessing the complexity of a text, a teacher should determine if the skill or content be broken down into more simple components. Visual methods. Lessons using materials for students to view. Maps, images, political cartoons, multimedia presentations, and graphs. Miscue insertion. When the reader adds a word or group of words to the text, an enthusiastic reader adds the word very into dialogue when reading. Competence. A student's desire to perform. Scaffolding. A method of teaching that involves gradually removing aids when the teacher new components. When teaching how identifying adjectives, a teacher starts with the explicit teaching. Then she leads the class in a guided instruction and repeats or rephrases the necessary information. Next, she promotes the students with questions like what kind and which one. Eventually, students identify adjectives independently. Miscue repetition. When the reader repeats a word or a group of words in the text. When reading, a student stumbles on his words and goes back to the beginning to restart the sentence. Kinesthetic learning, tactile learning. Learning primarily by touching things or doing an activity. Create and act out plays or skits. Full alphabetic stage. A stage of word recognition in which students use their full working knowledge of letter-sound correspondence to decode unfamiliar words, letters by letter. A child comes across the word desk while reading and sounds it out. D-E-S-K. Whole class instruction. The teacher presents the same information in the same way to the entire class at the same time. A teacher typically uses whole class instruction for short lessons or modeling. Partial alphabetic stage. A stage of word recognition in which students combine their limited alphabetic knowledge with context clues to read. A child sees a picture of a truck in a book about vehicles, locates a word that starts with T on the same pages, and says truck. Frustrational reading level. A reading level that is difficult for the student and would require extensive teacher support for student comprehension. Autonomy. A student's ability to self-govern or self-motivates. Quantitative measures of text. Aspects of a text that are too hard for a reader to measure. These are typically measured by computer software. Word length, frequency of difficult words, sentence length, and text cohesion. Relatedness. A student's connection to others. Tactile methods. Lessons using materials for students to touch and handle, encouraging students to take notes, use study sheets, and build dioramas or models. Automatic stage. The final stage of word recognition in which a person decodes fluently and knows many strategies to identify new words. Students in the automatic stage of word recognition are able to read fluently and with greater comprehension because their focus shifts more toward the meaning of the text as a whole and less on individual words. Flexible grouping. Grouping students based on their learning needs or interests. After reviewing the student test results, a teacher can use flexible grouping to organize groups based on a student's area of weakness. Alphabetic knowledge. The ability to recognize, name, and write letters. Reader and task consideration. Aspects of reading a text that relate to the reader or the reader's purpose in reading the text. These considerations are determined and measured by teachers based on their professional judgment, knowledge of their students, and knowledge of the subject. Reader considerations include motivation, knowledge, and experiences. Task considerations include the complexity of the assignment related to reading and questions asked about the reading. Heterogeneous group. Group comprised of individuals working on various levels. A small group of students with varying academic abilities working together on a science project is a heterogeneous group. Electronic book. Books published in a digital format, now also known as an e-book. Students may read electronic books through various programs such as Reading A through Z on devices such as tablets and laptops.